with finding sources. You are now to the point in the course where it's time for you to go out and begin looking for sources that you plan to use in your research paper. I want to remind you, if you haven't written this down somewhere, that you are required to use at least 2 sources that come from the Heinz Library online databases. There is a tutorial video about how to access that from the library page and how to navigate those databases if you're not familiar with them. So you really, as a researcher, want to have a variety of sources, and that's one reason why you cannot use all open internet sources. Ideally, it would be wonderful if you had a book or some print sources also, but so much of what is in the library is now available online that I'm more concerned about you making sure that you're not using all sources from the World Wide Web. Okay, so let's get started. You have 2 kinds of sources that you can use. Primary is the first one. Primary sources are first-hand accounts. These include historical documents, literary works, eyewitness accounts, field reports, diaries, letters, lab studies, interviews, observation experiments, and surveys. So that is a primary source. When you're writing your literary analysis papers, the short stories or the poems that you're writing about are your primary sources. When you're writing your research paper, you might plan to use some of these different types of primary sources in your paper. Secondary sources include all other research that's not firsthand. So these would be the things we have talked about over the last couple of weeks: scholarly books, articles, reviews, biographies, textbooks, interpretations, or discussions of primary sources. Now, let's talk about scholarly versus popular sources. Scholarly sources are peer-reviewed by experts in the field. This is really important as a researcher to strive to find sources that are peer-reviewed. It makes you much more credible because you know that it has been reviewed by someone who is an expert and knows what he or she is talking about. These are articles that have high standards of accuracy. They're objective, and they are using accepted research methods. These are usually found in academic journals and library databases. So that's one of the reasons why I'm requiring that you use at least 2 sources that you have found on the Heinz Library databases. That ensures that you're using good scholarly material. It is my hope that you would use more than 2, but 2 is the minimum. Popular sources would include everything else. So this could be print publications that you find, websites, magazines, books, anything that's written that's not a scholarly source. These types of sources tend to simplify the topic or the facts. They might provide definitions or narratives or examples to make them understandable to a non-specialist, which would be, someone like you or me. They are often written by journalists or other professional writers who may specialize in a particular area, but they are reporting or commenting on the scholarship of others rather than actually doing the research themselves. So, for this reason, they're not reviewed by an expert, again, because it's usually something that's written by a journalist or another professional writer who is not an expert. They're more or less just reporting the information that they have found. So again, scholarly sources are your best. Popular sources, you have to be careful and really scrutinize before you determine whether or not it's useful. When you're thinking about scholarly and popular sources, this is what you want to look for. You want to look for an author with credentials. You want to look for sources that are peer-reviewed. We've talked about that several times. You want to look at the source citations to make sure that the person writing the source is citing his or her material where he or she is getting it from. Something that we'll talk about, especially when, something that we'll talk about, especially when you get to the Net Savvy Researcher, if you haven't looked at it already, is when you're looking at a website, it's really important to make sure that you don't see a lot of advertising. In fact, no advertising would be preferred, because if you see a lot of advertising, that indicates that the article or the information that you're reading very well might be biased based on the money or the funding that they are getting from the advertisers. Look at the language and content to determine whether it is something that is readable by you or appropriate for your research, and look for the publisher. Is it a scholarly publisher? Is there a publisher at all? When you look at your book, if you'll pay particular attention to page 435, it very well, it nicely lays out for you visually some of the things that you can look at when you're looking at sources to determine whether or not they are valuable. All right, moving on to scholarly and popular sources. Print and online sources are obviously going to be your main sources that you're using. Some articles are available in print, some are available online. Many of them are available in both. If you're able to be on campus, you can talk to the librarian and she or he may be able to help you. I really want to encourage you to use the library's website rather than the commercial websites that you would find on the World Wide Web. Some of these that you can find on the library's website would be reference works. The library catalog, of course, is there, but at the top of your Canvas page, you'll see a link, MELO, and MELO is the Mississippi Electronic Libraries Online. And it's a really nice collection of online sources that have already been determined to be perhaps more credible than something you might find on your own. And you can search by topic, and you'll be able to navigate that if you click on MELO and find where that takes you. But I highly encourage you to use that. You've got index and databases on the library page that you can also use, and then search sites and subject directories as well. But the databases are a place that you definitely have to go and search. When you're looking to search, I want to encourage you to look at page 437 in your book. It also discusses for you how to navigate a database, how to potentially narrow your search down or expand it, how to determine which articles would be helpful or beneficial. Again, it's another useful visual tool. The other thing that I like is your textbook on page 438 and 439 really does a nice job of refreshing your memory, or maybe teaching you for the first time some really helpful ways to search, whether you're on a database or looking on the open internet. Whether you're going to use keywords or combinations of keywords, words that you can use to exclude certain things versus add certain things to your search. So I highly encourage you to look carefully at 438 and 439 because it can be very beneficial. You can look for authors, you can look for titles, you can look for subjects. You can search with keywords. If you don't get a lot of information, then be more general, or if you're getting too much information, be more specific. These tips at the bottom, as far as quotes around exact phrases or words you can use to include or exclude words, and even the asterisk, these are tips that you can find on 438 and 439 that I think you would find very beneficial. When you're thinking about reference works, general reference works includes encyclopedias, dictionaries, and almanacs. I really would prefer that you not use these in your research paper, but they are reference works. Wikipedia is not an academically sound website. Please do not use that in your paper. You would be penalized for that. Now, the one thing that Wikipedia can do for you is, if you remember from a previous lecture, you're encouraged to look at the bibliography. And Wikipedia provides a bibliography for you. And many times you can click on those links and it will take you to the various places where people have cited information. Now, at that point, you've got to use your net savvy tools and determine whether or not that website is actually credible. But again, it is a good jumping off place for you to expand your research, but it is not a credible source, so do not plan to use it. Specialized reference works include the things you see listed here. For your literary analysis search, you will find Gale on the library's website, so that is something that you can use. Bibliographies too. If you're looking for books, the library catalog online will help. You can also look at the online catalog for ebooks, and those you can download right to your computer or read online. You can search for periodicals also by using indexes and databases, and JSTOR and Academic Search Premier are some that you will see on the library page that you can use in your search for your literary analysis things. EBSCOhost and LexisNexis, that's a tongue twister, are also things that you could use for your research paper. Really, any of the academic databases are going to be good choices. It just really depends on the type of topic that you're writing about as to which one is the best. These are just a list that your textbook provides you of single subject indexes and databases. You'll have to look on the library page to see which of these our library uses. And again, depending on your topic, that will really dictate which type of database you even want to search in. But there is, I'm sure, many of these available for you. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because the Net Savvy Researcher lecture addresses a lot of this, but these are various places where you can go and search on the web as far as keyword searches or subject searches. But again, I would steer you away from social media, blogs, and things like that. If you are not familiar with Google Scholar, that's the bottom brown box there, or SciCentral, those are academic searches and databases online, the World Wide Web, that you might want to consider using. Google Scholar does have peer-reviewed papers, technical reports, and abstracts. So that is certainly a possibility. You may want to do some field research. It depends on your particular topic that you're writing about. I would encourage you to look at pages 448 and 449 and 450 in your textbook. If you decide you do want to interview someone, it gives you a really nice rundown of how to do that and what to expect. So consider that. You can also observe experts in your field. And if you have the ability to do that when writing your research paper, that is certainly a possibility. So again, 448 through 452 is going to address those topics. You can also consider creating a questionnaire or a survey. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but if you're interested, again, pages 451 and 452 in your textbook can talk to you a little bit more about how to do that if you choose to use that as a source in your paper. So this brings us to the end of The types of sources that you need to be looking at. Again, just one more time, you are expected to use at least 2 sources from the Hines Library databases, which you can access on the Hines Library page. And just another reminder about Milo at the top of Canvas, which you can again search by subject and then get a narrowed down list of possible sites on the open internet that you could look at. So, the types of sources that you use in your paper really says a lot about you as a researcher. So this is not something you want to speed through. This is probably the most time-consuming aspect of the research process. So you want to look thoroughly, you want to scrutinize your sources, choose only the best, keep in mind who is writing it, what is their goal, are they credible, so that when you finally compile those together in your annotated bibliography, you are demonstrating that you have thoroughly researched and found credible sources for your paper. Please let me know what questions you have, and good luck.